1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the Rob Newman Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Rob Newman Podcast. Prompted this week to give some thoughts because of somebody in my wider circle. My wife and I were talking to each other, and it prompted a thought about how some people live utterly miserable lives, despite on the surface appearing as if everything has gone their way. They're sleepwalking through their existence, having got that perfect promotion, that perfect situation, that perfect house and the Labrador and all the rest of it. But actually, deep down, they're bloody miserable. So today's topic is 6 habits of highly miserable people. Number 1, you lash out at the smallest provocation. Now, you know the scenario here. You're sitting in traffic, somebody cuts you up, and you scream at them. Now, I know everybody can get this to an extent, but if you think about this massive overreaction that people can sometimes have to situations, it's often an indicator that they are deeply unhappy with their lives. A long-term running overreaction is just saying that your cup is absolutely runneth over and you are suffering. So if you're seeing this one in your life, take stock. Number 2, you find excuses not to take risks. You look for anything to avoid moving from where you are now, despite the fact that deep down, you know you're very unhappy with what you're doing. Think about that most miserable person in your life. If you ask them out to that party that you're going to, that restaurant, they'll find some reason and excuse not to go. It's usually screaming that something is wrong. Number 3, it's never your fault. Now, nobody likes it to be their fault, but the chronically unhappy person will never admit that something has gone wrong and it's because of their own choices. Now, if you're really struggling to take the blame for something that you know deep down is yours, it's probably because something is making you seriously miserable. And you don't want to feel yet more crap because of the weight of the burden that you are putting on yourself because you know something's wrong. Think about it. Again, apply it to yourself or others in your life. Number 4, you anticipate all future problems before they happen. Now, this is Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Nothing's ever going to work. Everything is already doomed before you start. I suppose it leads on from never being prepared to take risks, but the unhappy are constantly panicking about a future that they know nothing about. The truth is, they're only borrowing trouble from the future to create it now. You don't actually know what the outcome is going to be. You don't know where you're going to end up at that future time. So if you are already anticipating the future problems, and I'm not talking about blindly running into some stupid situation, stop and assess, is it you that is unhappy? And again, if it's the people in your life, think about that. Number 5, you never want to change. Despite how deeply miserable you are, you never want to actually change it from the way you are. Happy people are willing and able to accept that change happens and that they have to go with it. But unhappy people are coming from a place of fear and never want to adapt, change, or move on from where they are, because to them, only worse things are coming. Now, nobody is unconcerned by change. I'm certainly not unconcerned by change. And yet, it's natural as a human being to have a hesitation about trying new things. But if you are constantly putting up barriers, or someone in your life is constantly putting up barriers to allowing a forward development and momentum, you have to look at, are they truly miserable? And finally, number 6 on this week's podcast, you can't feel gratitude for anything. The most truly persistent trait of the miserable is they are incapable of feeling gratitude for even a kindness or a beautiful vision in front of them. The greatest gifts in your life are around you at all times, and particularly you will have seen through the pandemic, being with your loved ones, being in your own home, seeing the sunrise are some of the finest things that you can ever experience. And yet the truly miserable, it passes them by at all times. Feel gratitude for all those things that you have to be thankful for. Let go of the unhappiness. That doesn't mean it's all sunshine and rainbows and you're going to skip through the world. I'm not saying that, but there is a difference between the waves that all human beings experience and the truly miserable. And you know of the truly miserable, those persistently angry, grumpy, unhappy people that drag down everyone around them. They need desperately to change, and yet they don't want to. Your only hope is to set them free and allow them to find the path that works for them. So that's this week's Rob Newman podcast. Thank you so much for listening to me. See you again.
Thank you for listening. Please remember that all of the views and opinions expressed by Rob are personal opinions and not professional advice.